If there is one director working today in the horror genre that needs to be studied and learned from for the future, it's Robert Eggers. I recently, for the first time, watched his first movie, The Witch, and I've now completed watching the main portion of his filmography. With these past films and now his new upcoming movie, Nosferatu, he has become one of my favorite working directors in general to be excited for whenever he makes a film. I've learned enough from his movies now to know that the guy just gets it. He understands this genre more than any other current working director. As we end off this Halloween month, I wanted to take some time to explore why I say that. In this video, I'm going to break down how Robert Eggers right now is the horror director of our time and why you need to be paying attention to him. As a disclaimer for those watching the video, this is not a video that is meant to break down his films in terms of their quality. I completely acknowledge that there are people who do like Robert Eggers and his movies, and there are some people who don't gel with him at all. I also recognize that there are some people who say, for example, like The Northman, and it's their favorite film of his, but then they go to a movie like The Lighthouse and they don't like that movie at all. It's the subjectivity of his films that I think are not what I'm here to discuss, but more so the kind of director that he is as to how he handles the filmmaking process of creating his movies. That right there is the reason why I really like him as a filmmaker. If you've now watched The Witch, The Lighthouse, and The Northman, you'll recognize within him that he very clearly cares for the craft in creating movies to be a piece of art. Films that will evoke a lot of emotions from you, whether it's you not resonating with him and how he tells his stories, or if it's the opposite and you resonate with him because of how he comes off as real and authentic with the elements of filmmaking itself. For me, it's the latter of why I love him as a filmmaker. So many scenes with his films resonate with me as someone who aspires to want to be a filmmaker. This idea that he puts a lot of care and attention into making sure that his scenes come off in a way that feels natural to the kind of genre that he makes films out of. It doesn't matter if it's more horror-like with a movie like The Witch, or if it's more psychological horror with a film like The Lighthouse, or even with his most recent film in The Northman, where it feels more steeped in the thriller aspect of it all. To that point about how he gives careful attention to crafting scenes based on those elements is now rooted in one of the areas of filmmaking, particularly with a horror genre movie that has become forgotten with so many other filmmakers that I want to speak to. And that area of filmmaking is lighting and production design. Now, I don't know how many horror movies a lot of you have watched in terms of recent stuff, but I've seen a couple now where I have noticed a trend in how the filmmakers of these movies treat the lighting and the production design. There is probably no more of an important aspect in how to craft an effective horror movie than the lighting and the production design. Lots of people resonate with good horror, with how the darkness of scenes in these films are utilized. When you take the example of something recent that I watched in the new Salem's Lot remake on HBO Max, that movie has no idea what it means to make for good lighting in representing the types of horror creatures that it is about, which are vampires. There are some good shots within it, but overall, the movie lacks consistency with lighting and setting up scenes that you would think are going to be terrifying, but they fall flat. Now contrast that over with Eggers and his films. The Lighthouse, The Witch, and The Northman have a distinct care for lighting and how those scenes are set, so that the audience is able to not know how to feel about what could come next. They use what's called practical lighting in the sense that they use the outside real-life sources of either sunlight or something like moonlight to light their scenes. Another filmmaker named Alejandro Inarritu also does this kind of thing with his films. In particular, my favorite example of this is with his movie The Revenant. Him and Robert Eggers utilize real location shooting to where they actually will go out to a place and shoot it there instead of going on a green screen set and filming a fake background. You'll notice this in a lot of behind-the-scenes footage of Robert Eggers and his films. As a backup, you'll also notice here in this particular scene from The Northman that they actually used giant lights from a crane-like machine to illuminate a very expansive area of land in order to help capture the background. Even with that in mind, it's something to give credit towards because it shows that Robert Eggers is not the kind of guy that will cheap out and shoot his scenes during the daytime by using that nighttime filter that you see TV shows and movies doing now. Some people could miss it, but there are certain TV shows recently and movies that I have seen where I could tell they shot a scene during the night, but in actuality actuality, it was done in the day. Robert Eggers also tends to do this when he's inside buildings or other various structures. He uses the inside lighting to help craft scenes to make it look like it's natural. Good lighting and on-location shooting really do matter when it comes to production design elements that, in the case of horror movies, really breathe life in them for when they get made, but then also for when the audience sees it in the final product. The next thing I want to speak to is honestly more of a rant that I have towards the entire genre of horror, regardless of what director I'm talking about or movie. In this case though, with actually speaking towards Robert Eggers, I have to give massive credit to him with how he actually cares for the filmmaking and storytelling elements of imagery. Imagery is something that this genre has completely lost in the modern era of filmmaking and movies that you don't get as much because it's not cared for as much by the studios, or there aren't many creatives who factor that into their films when they should. As a marketing guy myself, that kind of stuff is super important when promoting a movie in the horror genre, or really any genre in general. There's something about horror that elicits a reaction from people more than most other genres that allows them to really want to go and see a movie because of the imagery that certain projects may present. I have seen lots of marketing recently fail in that category, whether it's through movie or TV show posters and trailers, or whatever else you might find in movie marketing and TV show marketing. Too much stuff now feels generic and sloppy with its presentation because either corporate deemed it so, or the creatives weren't allowed to actually make good stuff. With that aside, Robert Eggers as an example of a filmmaker and director is someone who seemingly removes himself from that. The images that he produces through just some still frames alone in his movies can either be terrifying or elicit a reaction to where you don't even know what to do. You are just sitting there wide-eyed, almost feeling like you're not able to breathe, as if you are there in that actual scene itself. Just take a look at the trailers for Nosferatu, his new movie. The imagery in so many ways of certain shots are striking. It's almost like he crafted the trailer himself to make sure that only certain scenes were shown. It doesn't seem like he wants to give away the look of Count Orlok, or even give a simple tease as to how terrifying he's going to be. Just one image alone of him standing in the dark in a hallway is enough for me to be scared out of my mind. It's really smart filmmaking, and I wish more filmmakers in this genre would adopt that. Eggers also does this exact same thing with another element of filmmaking, which is sound design. Sound design is vastly important to horror movies, and with where the genre has gone in recent years with making sound design a trope of itself because of its utilization towards only doing jump scares, it's lost its meaning and potential for creating really tense and scary moments in films and shows. Eggers basically says fuck that in a way and doesn't resort to the jump scare slop that we see in so many horror movies where it gets overly ridiculous with itself and you can see it coming from a mile away. Another director who works within the genre that I have to give massive credit to on that is Ari Aster. If anyone here has seen the movie Hereditary, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That movie is a masterclass in how to create effective tension through sound design, and if you are somebody who wants to make horror movies as a dream job in the future, study this movie and study Ari Aster. You won't regret it. So with all that being said, what was the point of this video and the thing that I want you to take away the most from it? It's not that I want you to look at his movies in a way where I am influencing you to now like them more. At the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, film is subjective. You don't have to look at his movies as masterpieces necessarily, but there is a level of respect I have for Eggers as a filmmaker that no matter how I feel about the story of one of his movies, or say how he treats characters, he still understands the point of what it means to make a proper film. I didn't even mention the fact that he just is insanely good at letting actors do their job. He makes sure to have them know what kind of film they are in, and so that way, those actors are giving absolutely incredible performances. The Witch is a great example of that. It is maybe one of the best horror movies I have ever seen in terms of acting. Those actors gave it their all, and I think Robert Eggers played a big part in that. He's just a director that understands what it means to put in his effort, passion, and time in creating an incredible piece of art, regardless of how you feel about it. It's stuff like that that inspires someone like me to want to be a filmmaker in the future. I haven't seen too many people on YouTube make videos about him in this manner, but I am hoping that after his new movie, we'll start to see more of that and people will understand where I'm coming from in this video. So there you have it, my commentary on Robert Eggers as the horror director we all should be paying attention to right now. I cannot wait to see his new movie Nosferatu because it looks like it's going to be one of the most insane movies of the year from a horror perspective, and I will absolutely be there to talk about it more as we get get closer to its release in December. What do you all think? Leave your comments down below on what you think about my commentary of Eggers. Let's have a nice and respectful conversation about it. Thank you for stopping by my channel. If you want to see more moving forward from me with regards to film and television and you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new here and turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build a community on here and your support would be greatly appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.